Hello and welcome to this deep dive into a major new mineral supply deal that is reshaping global trade dynamics. In this video we explore how a recent mineral deal has emerged in response to China's clampdown, why that matters for Africa and for the United States, and what it may mean for the future of resource security and geopolitical competition. Let's begin with a quick overview. A growing number of countries are reassessing their dependency on Chinese supply chains for critical minerals. These minerals are essential to modern technologies, from electric vehicles to batteries, renewable energy infrastructure, and high-tech manufacturing. When China tightened export rules, or when concerns about supply security intensified, other players stepped in. One such response has been a new deal for mineral supply that promises to diversify sources, especially from African nations. At the same time, the United States is re-engaging its policy levers to reduce reliance on China, secure necessary raw materials, and support its own strategic industries. In this video we unpack how that deal works, what it means in Africa, how the United States is responding, compare both approaches, and examine what's ahead. Let's start with Africa. Section 1. Africa and the Mineral Deal. Africa is home to vast reserves of minerals vital to the new energy economy: rare earths, lithium, cobalt, manganese, graphite, copper, and more. Many African countries have long supplied raw materials to the world, often through value chains that shift processing or refinement to other countries. But increasingly African governments are seeking to capture more value, negotiate better terms, and become strategic partners rather than passive suppliers. In response to China's clampdown on certain mineral exports or tightening of export permits, a new deal has emerged between African mineral-owning nations and nations or corporations seeking secure supply. Under this deal, mining companies or foreign partners commit to long-term contracts with African producers. These commitments include investments in mining infrastructure, refining or processing plants on-site or locally, capacity building for local workforce, environmental and regulatory safeguards, and often guarantees of purchase volumes over time. Why is this happening now? For one, China remains a dominant player in mineral processing and global supply chains. But as export restrictions tighten, whether due to environmental legislation, internal supply concerns, or political oversight, purchasers elsewhere feel pressure to find alternative sources. African governments see this as leverage to renegotiate their terms. They can demand better royalties, insist on more domestic processing, and push for local infrastructure development rather than simply export raw ore. Also, as the push for green energy speeds up globally, demand for battery metals is soaring. Governments and companies do not want to risk bottlenecks or single-source dependencies. That means Africa is suddenly in a powerful negotiating position, provided it can meet environmental, regulatory, political risk, and infrastructure risk thresholds. In practice that means new investments in mines, possible partnerships between African governments and international firms, and in some cases joint ventures that create local refining capacity. These projects bring jobs, tax revenues, and potential technology transfer. On the flip side, they also raise concerns: environmental impact, governance transparency, potentially uneven benefit sharing, and the risk that local communities may still not see the full returns. Another factor is that African nations are increasingly coordinating their policies. Regional blocs such as the African Union, or mining policy bodies, are exploring common regulatory frameworks, standards for environmental protection, and shared infrastructure corridors. That coordination strengthens bargaining power with foreign firms and helps assuage investor concerns about political risk or regulatory unpredictability. In short, the mineral deal emerging amid China's clampdown offers Africa an opportunity to modernize its mining sector, capture greater value addition at home, and project more sovereign control over critical resources. But it requires savvy negotiation, strong governance, investment in infrastructure, and long-term planning. Section 2. United States response and stake. Now let's shift to the United States and see how it fits into this new global scramble for minerals and supply security. For the United States, critical minerals are a strategic priority. In recent years, Washington has recognized that for national security, economic competitiveness, and technological leadership, particularly in semiconductors, electric vehicles, energy storage, and clean energy. Reliable access to raw materials is essential. Overdependence on a single foreign supplier, especially one with which tensions may rise, is a strategic vulnerability. Thus, when China imposes export restrictions or changes policies that threaten supply, the U.S. government takes note. U.S. policymakers use a mix of tools: diplomatic engagement, trade policy adjustments, investment incentives for domestic mining and processing, partnership agreements with allied nations, and regulatory reforms. Legislation such as the Inflation Reduction Act includes incentives for domestic battery supply chains and sources of critical minerals. Government agencies may also negotiate bilateral or multilateral agreements with mineral-producing countries to secure supply contracts. In recent months, the United States has pursued agreements with mining firms or foreign governments to ensure long-term access to minerals such as lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earths. Some deals may include guarantees or advance purchase commitments, co-financing of processing plants, or export credit-style arrangements to support infrastructure building in partner countries. The goal is twofold: reduce risk of disruption from one dominant supplier, and encourage processing value to remain in trusted or allied jurisdictions rather than flowing through locations with higher geopolitical risk. Beyond raw supply, the U.S. is seeking to build capacity domestically. That means approving new mines and processing facilities within the United States, reforming permitting procedures, improving environmental regulation frameworks, and offering tax or subsidy incentives to encourage investment. Additionally, the federal government is engaging with states, private sector, and academic institutions to ensure that innovations in battery recycling, supply chain traceability, and environmental impact mitigation are part of the overall strategy. Another strand is diplomatic cooperation and development assistance. The United States provides technical assistance, capacity building, and governance support to mineral-producing countries. In some cases, it negotiates trade or investment treaties that include language on sustainable mining, environmental protections, and local benefit sharing. In other cases, the U.S. is part of multilateral initiatives with allies seeking to diversify supply chains and secure resilience, for example through working groups on critical minerals, or collaborations with entities such as the World Bank, the African Development Bank, or regional investment funds. Altogether, the United States is responding to China's clampdown with a multi-pronged strategy, securing supply via external deals with mineral-producing countries, including African nations, building domestic capacity, aligning policy and investment incentives, and embedding sustainability and governance standards into its approach. Section 3. Comparison: Africa versus United States Strategy. Now let's bring it all together by comparing how Africa is positioned in this deal-driven shift, and how the United States is approaching the same challenges from a different vantage point. First, purpose and incentives differ. For Africa, the mineral deal is an opportunity to generate revenue, jobs, infrastructure, and long-overdue value addition. It is about economic development, sovereignty over resources, and making sure future generations benefit from present extraction. It is also about repositioning Africa in the global economy as a supplier of processed materials rather than raw ore. For the United States, the same kind of deal is motivated by strategic necessity. It is less about economic development in partner countries per se, though that is part of diplomacy, and more about securing supply chains, reducing dependency on geopolitical rivals, and protecting its technological competitiveness. That difference shapes the kinds of agreements each side pursues. Second, capacity and constraints differ. Many African countries have rich mineral endowments but suffer infrastructure gaps, policy uncertainty, and sometimes governance or environmental risk concerns. Building processing plants, securing funding, navigating local political dynamics, and ensuring community engagement are major hurdles. Delays, cost overruns, and political risk are real. In contrast, the United States has more technical and financial capacity, though it faces its own domestic constraints: permitting delays, environmental regulation, public opposition to new mines or processing facilities, and balancing climate goals with local impacts. Domestic reforms take time, and investment incentives compete with other priorities. Third, design of agreements and leverage differs. African nations often negotiate from a position of commodity supply, but must offer sufficient security or value-added advantages to attract long-term partners. The United States negotiates from the vantage of buyer and strategic ally, offering capital, regulatory frameworks, market access, and political reliability. Thus the terms of deals may differ. Africa may demand higher royalty rates, local processing requirements, ownership stakes, or infrastructure development commitments. The United States may require assurances of sustainable mining practices, labor and human rights protections, and alignment with environmental goals. Fourth, risk and reward. Both sides share upside, reliable mineral supply, job creation, strategic partnerships, but also share downside, shifts in global prices, supply chain shocks, investor risk, and political changes. African governments may face backlash if citizens perceive that deals benefit foreign firms more than local communities. The United States may find that accelerating domestic mining or partnering abroad triggers environmental or political opposition at home or abroad. Fifth, longer-term vision. Africa may aim to build up a regional processing hub and integrate its minerals sector into broader industrialization and energy transition plans. The United States may aim to build a more resilient domestic battery materials ecosystem integrated with its clean energy goals, innovation in recycling, and mapping supply chain resilience into trade and foreign policy. Section 4. Challenges and opportunities ahead. Before we conclude, let's examine the key challenges and opportunities that lie ahead for both Africa and the United States in the wake of this mineral deal. Challenges include regulatory risk, environmental and social impact, market price volatility, and geopolitical pushback. For African nations, one major challenge is ensuring that mining deals are transparent, fair, and do not degrade environmental or community interests. Ensuring that revenue is reinvested in infrastructure, education, or health rather than lost to corruption or poor management is essential. Financing is another hurdle. While foreign investors or governments may commit to projects, access to affordable financing, insurance against political risk, and alignment with development finance institutions is critical. Ensuring that local workforce development and capacity building keeps pace with project scale is also important. In the United States, domestic permitting reforms are often politically difficult. Communities near mining or processing sites may oppose expansion due to environmental or health concerns. Balancing speed with environmental standards and public trust is delicate. Meanwhile, global price swings in demand for minerals, especially as new battery technologies emerge or shift requirements, may reduce the lifespan or profitability of existing investments. On the opportunity side, however, the rewards could be substantial. For Africa, the ability to leap-start mineral processing industries, attract downstream manufacturing, and partner in the green energy transition offers economic transformation. Countries that succeed could become regional leaders in battery supply chains, attract foreign direct investment, and foster innovation clusters around mining technology, recycling, and sustainable extraction. For the United States, securing reliable access to critical minerals strengthens its energy transition ambitions, bolsters its domestic manufacturing and high-tech industries, and reduces exposure to geopolitical risk. It can also strengthen diplomatic ties with resource-rich countries and align foreign policy priorities with climate goals. There is room for innovation too. Battery recycling firms, digital traceability of mineral origin, investment in sustainable mining technologies, and shared governance frameworks can increase trust, competitiveness, and environmental standards. Multilateral cooperation or regional hubs could scale impact beyond a single country or project. Conclusion. So what can we conclude about the mineral deal that secures supply amid China's clampdown? It is more than just a trade contract. It is a signal of shifting power dynamics in the global resources economy. It shows how resource-rich African nations are stepping into stronger negotiating roles, demanding value addition at home, and aligning with global trends in green energy. It also shows how the United States is adjusting policy, investment, diplomacy, and regulation to reduce its dependency risks and stay competitive in a rapidly evolving technological landscape. The path ahead will not be easy. Both Africa and the United States face obstacles, political, financial, environmental, and technical. But the potential payoff is vast: sustainable economic development, cleaner energy futures, stronger industrial bases, and more resilient global supply chains. As the world races toward decarbonization, the stakes for securing minerals are high. How this mineral deal plays out may become an important case study in how countries can adapt to shifting geopolitical realities, build sustainable industries, and manage the balance between risk and reward. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What do you think will be the biggest challenge for mining-led development in Africa? How well can the United States balance domestic priorities with global supply chain strategy? See you next time.